It's time for some good trouble. I'm Jessica Denson, and this is Lights On. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the Jessica Denson YouTube channel where you are watching this show. Lights On is a movement. We were called out and referenced by Representative Al Green this week, who, in the spirit of John Lewis and that good trouble that he encouraged, forced an impeachment vote in the House of Representatives. That movement is growing. I am going to tell you more about it. Today's show is really all about it and the growing movement of people in the streets that are demanding the removal of this illegal, felonious, unconstitutional regime that we are living through. As you know, as you have probably heard today, the Supreme Court, led by the conservative majority 6-3, essentially greenlit for the time being a furtherance of Donald Trump's attack on the 14th Amendment, Section 1, birthright citizenship. The 14th Amendment, okay, the 14th Amendment of our Constitution is what gave humanity to our Constitution, what ceased to refer to people as partial people, what established humanity and dignity for the human race in the United States of America. And he has attacked the first article of Section 1 of the 14th Amendment and trying to end birthright citizenship. And today, the Supreme Court ruled that he could essentially, there could not be nationwide injunctions. They granted the administration's request to narrow the scope of 3 so-called universal injunctions issued by federal judges in Maryland, Massachusetts, and Washington state that halted enforcement of his directive nationwide while litigation challenging the policy plays out. So what they did was they stepped back, not ruling on the actual merits of the case, but buying into this kind of shell game that I know all too well that the Trump world plays in trying to get legal rulings in their favor. This could have massive implications for babies being born in this country very, very soon. It is going to require so many lawsuits to address what could have been addressed by nationwide injunctions. And they have punted actually handling this issue on the merits, handling the obscene argument that Trump has tried to make that children of non-citizens who are born in this country, that those parents are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, as it explains in Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. I have had scholars of the 14th Amendment on this show explaining why that argument is complete garbage. It is completely unconstitutional. It is one of so many assaults on our constitutional order that really are just boiled down to inhumanity. It's the same kind of thing we're seeing played out on a daily basis in these terrorism raids being carried out by ICE. Just the sheer inhumanity of these visuals, these images we are seeing of people who have been here for decades, living crime-free lives where they pay taxes, where they work hard, where they have children who are enlisted in our military in service to this country, and they are targeting these individuals, snatching them off the streets, in the worst case, beating them, hurting them, putting them in detention centers where they literally don't get a change of clothes out of their bloody clothing for days and have to sleep on the floor with other people who have been detained. It is inhumane, it is un-American, it is disgusting, it is fascist. This is being carried out by a criminal president who is there illegally in violation of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, and who has an entire administration that is unfit and disqualified. So there is a massive, massive movement out there right now to have him removed. I mentioned to you that we have been at the heart of the impeachment and removal movement. I, a few weeks ago, founded the Removal Coalition, which is simply a coalition that serves to amplify the grassroots organizations that are explicitly demanding removal of Donald Trump from office. Among them are 5051 DC, which is I've been so happy to be working with really over the past few months. They were one of our partner organizations for the 314 March in Washington, the Veterans March that honored our veterans in honor of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And they have a major announcement today, live from a protest. The Secretary of 5051 DC is going to join us live. So I'm very excited to be joined by her. I'm also involved with them on the back end in planning for this upcoming event that she's going to announce today. But before we do that, I just wanted to give you the comment that I got today from Evan Bernick about this birthright citizenship case. Now, Evan is a frequent guest on the show. He has spoken here with extreme clarity on the issue of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment and why Trump is, in fact, an illegal president and remains disqualified to this moment. Really, foundationally, the threshold of every action that he takes can't even be legally passed because his existence as a president is not valid. It is a constitutional violation in and of itself. But Evan, when I reached out to him today about this order, sent me this message back. He said, "It's about as bad as it could be, given that the court didn't reach the merits of whether the order was constitutional. It will make it harder across the board in every area of law for people to challenge the administration's illegal actions. And the court is convinced, or pretending to be convinced, that it can trust the administration's promises to play by the rules and accept the court's authority." That's the most troubling part. It hasn't learned from the administration's defiance of its own orders and its obvious disregard for settled law, doesn't take account of the fact that the administration refused to make any promises that it would follow lower court decisions about birthright citizenship, doesn't seem to know what it is dealing with, or worse, does and doesn't care or agrees. I think Ketanji Brown Jackson's dissent strikes all the right notes and appreciates the stakes. This was a test of the court's understanding of the administration's threat to the rule of law, and the court failed it. One of many instances of how the Supreme Court has failed us. Obviously, they are part and parcel of the reason why we find ourselves in this unthinkable predicament right now, because Donald Trump, number one, should never have been allowed to run for president. Number two, you should never have any kind of immunity for crimes committed by a president as so-called official acts. The rulings that have come out of this Supreme Court, which in and of itself is so deeply compromised, as we know, are why we are here. But I see in the background, we have Alisa waiting for us. Now, she is live, literally live from a pop-up protest in Washington, D.C. This protest is explicitly focused on impeachment. It is directed at engaging very specifically with the community and parts of the community that are not usually engaged. So I'm really excited to welcome Alisa from 50. Hi, Alisa.
Hi, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we hear you great. And I love your sign.
Thank you. It says impeach and reform.
Reclaim. Impeach,
reclaim. Did it say? Oh, beautiful. I forgot what I wrote on it.
That's okay. Beautiful. So, and I love the American flags, all about claiming back those symbols of patriotism and freedom and democracy that these fascists have tried to hijack from us. Can you, first of all, I know we have a big announcement from you at 5051 DC, but just tell me what you're doing right now.
So right now we are working on our pop-up protests. So these protests are built to specifically engage the people who may be in particular disengaged from what's going on. So a lot of people may not be inside of the political sphere, so we're bringing our message to the people. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be walking through like neighborhoods, popular life areas with our signs. We're going to be speaking to people, and we're even going to be singing. So it's going to be really great. It's going to be really fun. We're all really excited.
Nice, nice. So you just got out there and got started tonight, right?
That's right. This is actually our first day that we're doing these. But we're going to be doing these weekly, so we're really excited to continue to do this.
Nice. And I love that aspect of trying to reach people that aren't usually engaged, because whether it's a particular like demographic or part of the community, or even just like people in the public, you and I, Alisa, and the people standing behind you, and like all of us in this
wave your flags,
are so deeply engaged, and we know that you know, the minute by minute of everything that's going on. But you sometimes can't believe it, but believe it or not, there are people out there who this fascist regime has not yet touched the lives of, and one day it is going to touch their lives. So we're trying to let them know before it's too late.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I've been really excited to be joining you guys in the planning for the upcoming event in mid-July that is centered around the call to action on July 17th in honor of John Lewis Good Trouble Day. Can you tell me tell me the big announcement for what 5051 is planning?
Yeah, so as you guys probably know, 5051 in general has a day of action on the 17th of July. But 5051 DC is they're really excited to state that we are joining this and we are going to be doing a march. So we're really excited to do this and to be working together for this. This is a day of solidarity. And this is a day of really coming together and realizing that we are part of one group. We're all going to be affected with this, so we have to stand together.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And there's so much that the civil rights movement in particular teaches us about to handle this moment. Do you have like 2 or 3 minutes? I wanted to read from an article about Reverend Lawson, who is a civil
Yeah.
rights icon, and just the lessons that he has for this moment, I think, are so salient, so instructive. This is from an article in The Guardian recently by Deepak uh, Bhargava. I'm trying to get the graphic up on the screen for you. It's full of instruction about how we can handle this assault that we're dealing with right now. It's called "We Are No Longer Free, but We Can Win Our Freedom Back." It's in The Guardian right now. I highly suggest looking it up. And he talks about how it's not just one aspect of our resistance that's going to work. It's going to take everything. It's going to take the protests. It's going to take the lawsuits. It's going to take the boycotts. It's going to take the civil disobedience. Yes, in fact, we're going to have to start getting comfortable with some civil disobedience, as John Lewis did. But he talks about, first of all, the importance of this moment. And Alisa, you know this from my chats with you guys privately, and my audience knows it well. Like I am so honed in on the urgency of the moment right now that we
Mhm.
can't wait for more damage to be done. And Deepak writes in this article, we have a precious window of time to organize and dissent openly. We can take hope from large cases around the world when everyday people have made that choice in large numbers. U-turns happen. Scholars have found that 73% of episodes of authoritarian breakthrough around the world in the last 30 years have been followed by democratic revivals. Sometimes those revivals bring about an even stronger democracy than what came before. But U-turns aren't self-executing, and the time to act is limited. Comparable cases like India and Hungary suggest that if authoritarianism is not effectively challenged in the first couple of years, it can deepen and become the new normal for a decade or more. And he also brings about how Reverend Larson and his contemporaries did not promise an easy path. Millions of us will have to reckon honestly with our current reality. We will need to make the choice to act. We will need to contribute our time, talent, and money strategically. We will have to tap a deep reservoir of courage and love we didn't know we had. Reverend Lawson's key teaching was hopeful. If we do those things, we can get free. If we do.
Exactly.
So you guys at 5051, listen, I'm in the back end watching, even when I'm not engaged in the planning with you guys, I'm watching every single day. People show up for a protest of 10 people or a protest of
Mhm.
even a handful of people. And sometimes it's hundreds, sometimes it's thousands, but you're there for everything. You are engaged. You're not willing to let this go down on your watch. And for what you're planning for July 17th, I know because I've done one of these things before, it is not cheap. It takes money, it takes infrastructure. Can you tell me about what your needs are from us to help you pull off the event, the March on Washington?
Of course. So basically, this is a march, right? So marches do have specific needs. Some of it we have covered, but one of the things that we absolutely do not have at this moment is basically a sound system. And we are working on that. However, it is difficult to find one that is going to be working for us, of course, within our budget. There's also, of course, going to be porta potties. People have to be able to go to the bathroom. That is part of the NPS requirements, as well as the requirements for any type of protest inside of DC. There are also water coolers, things like that. Like, it's in the middle of the summer, so all of these things are going to have to be taken care of. So those are, just a brief list of kinds of things that we have to be worried about when it comes to this.
Yeah, absolutely. It is expensive. Like you guys know here on Lights On, if you've been on this show before, I've put these things on. I've fundraised on this show. It takes a lot of money. So many things have to be done permit-wise with national parks or whatever agency you're working with to make sure that everybody is safe, that everybody has the facilities they need, that everybody can hear and see what's going on. None of this is cheap. It takes a lot of infrastructure. So if you can, please go to the link that's in the description. I also just put it up in the chat. Actually, let me put a banner on the screen as well, just for the rest of the show with you, Alisa. If you can support at all, please go to this website now and support 5051 DC in their efforts to
Say hi.
stage this March on Washington. Also, I'm very, as I mentioned at the top, so happy that 5051 DC is in the removal coalition. I have been so explicit with my audience and everybody that I interact with that I think a missing part of the protest space is direct messaging, direct demands. What are we demanding? What do we want the media to pick up on, and the lawmakers to feel our pressure about and get? Can you talk about just kind of the emergence of 5051 in the removal coalition? I mean, it's right on message with what you're doing today.
Yeah. Yeah, MAGA has got to go, right? Okay,
Exactly.
thank you. So yes, I completely agree with you. As part of my coalition with 5051 DC, and also I'm part of Political Revolution, we basically have been doing a huge amount of research as to what makes these kinds of movements successful. And one of the things that we found is going to be specific demands. So
Yes.
it's not just showing up to a protest and saying, this has got to go. I don't like what's going on. You have to have a specific demand. And our demand, we have a couple demands, but one of the demands that we have is impeachment, impeachment and removal. And another thing, as I'm sure you'll say, end executive overreach, right? That is a huge problem that's going on right now, right? And of course, reform of what is going on. Because if what is happening here is then allowed to happen by the system, it's got to change. So it doesn't even just stop there. It's got to continue. Like, even after, let's say, all of this comes to pass, we're going to have to work hard for a very long time to make sure that that this does not happen again.
Absolutely. And when you talk about ending executive overreach, I mean, basically this caricature of a presidency that we have right now has really, the silver lining kind of this whole situation. It has brought to the surface so much filth that has been
Hmm.
lingering for so long, that
Exactly.
really needs to be rooted out and cleaned up. And if we really seize on this moment in the right way, understand this for the opportunity it is, not only will we impeach, convict, and remove Trump and the rest of the corrupt, illegal administration, we will root out this corruption that has been infesting our democracy, our country, our system for years, decades.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot to do, like, to be honest. There's like a huge amount of work to be done on all of this. And it doesn't just stop with the impeachment removal and all of that. It's going to continue, keep going. And you know what? Another thing that I found in my research recently is that conflict in moments like these is not necessarily a terrible thing. Because we've been kind of like smoothing it over and saying everything is okay. We can work together, but in reality, we have a lot of different values that people have that are coming in conflict with each other, and we have to have a dialogue about it. We've become too complacent with the idea of just agreeing to disagree. We need to start having dialogues with the people. And if there's anything that I can particularly say about that, is that we all need to become more comfortable talking to each other, and kind of feeling out these differences and trying to understand one another.
Yeah, Lisa, I think we need to become more comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today from your live protest. I love this. This is like my favorite. My favorite thing on Lights On is to actually just have live protests being broadcast. So please, as a reminder, if you haven't already, go to that ActBlue link that's on your screen, secure.actblue.com/donate/5051 DC. I'd love to see that tick up just by the end of this show. If we could really help them get the infrastructure they need, we can pull off a really extraordinary event on July 17th that is so crystal clear about what we are in solidarity for: removal, the end of executive overreach, and restoration of power to the people, for God's sakes. Alisa, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank
And thanks,
you.
much love to everybody there.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, this show, this movement has made so much extraordinary progress. If you caught me earlier this week, we had Representative Al Green on after he forced that vote on the floor of the House of Representatives, forcing his colleagues to take a vote on his new article of impeachment, the impeachment article that indicts Donald Trump for his illegal declaration of war, essentially on Iran, an unconstitutional act without the authorization of Congress. He got 79 Democrats, which is not nearly enough, but 79 Democrats to vote in favor of that resolution. Now, just to put that in proper framing, I want to reiterate something that John Bonifaz, the president of Free Speech for People, who has been instrumental in being alongside Representative Green in this process, he said, think of it this way. Before Tuesday, when we had that vote, there were four Democrats who had gone on the record for impeachment. Only four Democrats who had vocally, I'm sorry, there are a few more than that had said behind closed doors or respond to constituents that they would, but four had been vocal, four had been publicly outspoken. Now we have 79 Democrats who have signed on to the impeachment effort of Donald J. Trump, which, as we brought out on the show earlier this week, is about 20 more than Al Green had when he initially forced a vote in Donald Trump's first term back in 2017. Now, I want to remind you of this list because you, my friends, are having a huge impact. Your pressure is having a huge impact on these lawmakers, those that voted not to allow the article to proceed, that voted to table the motion. These are the yay votes on the motion to table, which is essentially equivalent to a motion to kill. These are the Democrats, the 128 Democrats that voted to table the motion. All right. No excuse whatsoever. I've heard some ridiculous arguments like voting to table it is voting to save the resolution. That's nonsense. What they were stopping was 30 minutes or an hour, I forget the specifics, of debate that they did not want to have. And even if it had proceeded and then the ultimate vote on it failed, it could have been raised again because of the special privilege of Rule 9, which is the rule that Al Green used to force the vote. It is a special privilege attached to raising articles of impeachment in the House. Any member can bring it. Even if the ultimate resolution failed, all he would have had to do is refile it and they could have voted on it again. So no excuse for these 128 Democrats. But as one example, look on that list, the bottom left-hand corner, I believe, there's a name there. Let me pop this up here. Representative Andre Carson. Now, Andre Carson was one of those votes to table. And you better believe that Andre Carson, like many of the people on that list, were feeling intense heat and pressure and disapproval and, frankly, disgust with his vote to table Al Green's article. And what did he do the next day? He came out and essentially announced that he would be a co-sponsor of it. So he went from a vote to table to literally being someone who was willing to co-sponsor Al Green's article. That is the effect of your pressure. Please, my friends, keep it up. Call the Congressional Switchboard, 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. Ask for any one of these representatives who voted to table Ask them what the hell they're doing. As I say, peaceful but relentless. Demand that these people uphold their oath. We have a constitutional crisis, an all-out authoritarian coup going on. If they're not voting to oust this man by our constitutional means right now, what the hell are they doing? What the hell are they doing? I don't want to hear any arguments about impeachment has lost its gravity or lost its weight. This is the means, for God's sakes. This is the means that we have to constitutionally remove a president. If we have this kind of assault going on a daily basis, and you are not willing to use the constitutional means that we have, you're basically setting us up for something very, very dangerous. So it's on you, my friends. It's on you to uphold your oath and support impeachment and removal of this guy and change the narrative. And that's what the Removal Coalition is all about. I'm going to announce one more big event that's coming up right before I bring in Michael Embrich, who is going to join us in just a moment. He's friend of the removal movement. He was a speaker at the 314 Veterans March. He's a columnist for Rolling Stone and a former advisor at Veterans Affairs. He's also a Navy vet himself. So we're going to bring him in just a minute, but I want to put this one other event on your radar. I mentioned 2 dates in the description, one being July 17th. The other big date for protest coming up is July 4th. July 4th. If you can, show up at your local, your capital city, your local town, have an event, or see if one is being planned in the morning of July 4th, during the day in July 4th. What a day to protest Donald Trump, the man who is literally almost line by line committing the offenses that were our grievances against the king in our Declaration of Independence. What could be a more apt day to protest Donald Trump? I, for one, will be in Miami, Florida. Miami, Florida, my friends. Oh my gosh, let me tell you, this is quite a full circle moment for me, because the last time I was in Miami, I was working on the 2016 Trump campaign. So this will be my first time back to Miami since then. And I will be joining 5051 Florida and 5051 Miami, who also are part of the Removal Coalition. And they have very aptly named this Reclaim Freedom Rally for Removal. And I think it's excellent. It's excellent that this messaging is being put out there top line more and more in these protests. So here's a wonderful example from 5051 Miami. Please, if you're part of a 5051 chapter, indivisible chapter, your own leader of local protests, or standing on your street corner in that red blue dot in a red town, set up a rally for removal like 5051 Miami, and share it with me at Jessica Denson 07 on Instagram, on Blue Sky, and I will do everything to amplify it for sure. So anyway, I'm very happy to be joined by my next guest. He is a friend. We actually ran into each other again on D-Day in Washington, D.C. Michael Embrich. Mike, welcome back to Lights On.
Jessica, how are you? I just got to make an adjustment here. There you go. Okay.
No problem.
How are you?
We're both
How's it
coming
going?
to you from our hotel rooms today.
That is true. Yes, we are.
So you told me when you came on, we've got, of course, Donald Trump trying to force through this heinous, I call it bastardly barbarous bill. It's been called a MAGA murder bill, big ugly bill. He's doing everything he can to push this through before Independence Day. And you are intimately familiar with what a disgusting assault on our veterans and their service this bill is. Can you just kind of give us, refresh us on some of these details? And I know you've written about it too.
Yeah, so the big busted bill kind of basically defunds the VA. So the health, I mean, you need a little bit of a backstory on this. So the healthcare industry really has nowhere else to grow at this point. Outside of pharmaceuticals, healthcare in America is what it is, and it's not getting any bigger as far as hospitals go. And there is one giant untapped giant piece of gold, and it's the VA. It's the public VA healthcare system, and they are licking their chops. All the healthcare executives in America, all of the people who run for-profit hospitals, which are most of them in this country. Some of them are nonprofits, but that's just by name. They coordinate with doctors who make profits. So they want that big chunk of public hospital that works really well for our veterans, that can negotiate drug prices, that has no fees. Healthcare makes their money off of fees, and there's no more fees left to be had. The hospital fees are maxed out. The codes are maxed out. They really can't make much more money off of them. The reason why Medicare and Medicaid hasn't been cut in the past is because the healthcare industry is so strong. But I think what happened behind the scenes is they're willing to trade cuts to Medicaid for a privatized VA, and that's where we're headed. Senator Ossoff had Doug Collins, who's the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, in front of the Senate committee yesterday, and asked him where they're going to cut $17 billion, with what positions are they going to cut? And Doug Collins couldn't answer the question. We know the answer. It's nurses and doctors and mental health professionals and everybody VA relies on, because what they want to do is, and there's a bill in Congress called the Access Act that they want to send those veterans out to private providers. They want to make the VA a private, for-profit healthcare system, and this bill is just the beginning of it.
Yeah, you're really talking about a system that is just exploiting people who are in need for profits and for greed. And I know from the first administration, Donald Trump's first administration, how aggressively they were trying to do this. You talked in this article that you wrote about, I think this is from May in the Rolling Stone, about veterans literally working out of closets because of his nonsensical war on the VA. I mean, just talk about some of the absurd conditions that our veterans are being put into right now because of the Trump administration.
Sure. So on the flip side of the big busted bill's budget cuts, which means they won't be hiring anybody in the future, they want to make it untenable for current VA employees who actually help our veterans to work there. So during the Biden administration and all throughout COVID, there was a hiring preference for remote-only workers, which means you could work from home doing VA claims right from your couch. You didn't even have to leave. And that really sped up the wait times, because we had people that didn't have to commute to the office. That's an hour out of your day. Get your coffee, sit down at your desk and start doing claims. They could wake up at 7:30 in the morning, shut their computer off at 7:30 at night. And it actually was a really good system. But Trump wants to eliminate most of the federal government. That's quieted down a bit because there's a case currently in front of the Supreme Court. As we saw today, the Supreme Court has allowed Trump to move past injunctions, local injunctions from district courts. So we can expect the Supreme Court to rule that Trump can get rid of most of the federal government. So they're going to fire 82,000 employees at VA, and the rest of them are going to be working in conditions that are so unsuitable that most of them will just quit and try to find a new job, because even with the civil service protections, it's not worth working there in a broom closet with your coworker elbow to elbow, because you got hired to work from home and they don't have enough offices for you to work. So it's basically a systemic dismantling of the VA, and it's happening on every single level. And the only people who are seeing it right now are the veterans that get the care from the VA, because the mainstream media is not covering this at all. And members of Congress who are actually, and their staffs are actually looking at the bill to see what the real world impacts of this are, which we won't know how bad this is until the next budget cycle, really. So until October.
Yeah, well, I would remind everybody, and this is one thing that I've learned from our friends at Citizens Impeachment and Gabe Garberwood, a former Senate staffer who's been on our show. One tool that those senators, even the ones that raise holy hell in hearings, don't use nearly enough is objecting to unanimous consent.
Yeah.
They can object to unanimous consent to literally grind the operations of the Senate to a halt on most matters. One name you may remember, Mike, Tommy Tuberville. He used this very tactic to stop military, flag officers from being promoted under Biden for months. I mean, was it even, I feel like it was almost a year. It was an obscenely long time. He was in the minority. He had no special leadership. He was just using the tools that any member of that Senate has to grind things to a halt. And I think one major frustration of any of us who are seeing this assault on democracy, this insult to our veterans, to our service members, is that our legislators, even sometimes when they talk a good game, are not using nearly enough of the tools at their disposal to actually do something about it.
No, agreed. I mean, any one senator can stop a discussion dead in its tracks by refusing to consent. I mean, that's just part of the powers that the Senate has. The
Yeah.
parliamentarian would enforce that if it was done. Um, I guess the thing I always say this when I'm talking online, politics is a lot like sports. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody thinks they can do it better, but there's only a handful of people that know what's going on behind the scenes. So I try not to be too hard on people for not using unanimous consent, because I think if you go down that road, you could lead to a place where the Senate just becomes deadlocked. I think what Tuberville did was reprehensible. It wasn't even for a real issue or a real bill. It was for woke purposes. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's ever figured out what that is, and they probably never will. But certainly much more can be done legislatively. I know you guys are just talking about impeachment. I mean, if having a crypto party and inviting foreign investors is not a high crime and a misdemeanor for the president to commit, then really nothing is. I mean, let's be honest. If Obama or Biden did something like that, they'd be outside with pitchforks and torches. So.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. And just generally, like, remind me of your perspective of somebody who has actually served this country, having this all come down from a man who, first of all, is disqualified. This is my, like baby, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Okay. This is one of our OG 14th now members said, I compare this to having a president after the Civil War who was a Confederate soldier. I mean, that's basically what we've got as president right now, with having someone who is an insurrectionist, someone who tried to stay in power against the will of the people and led a violent insurrection on our Capitol as president. I mean, it's utterly insane. Somebody who claimed that he had bone spurs to avoid service and never served a day in his life, and has called our military wounded suckers and losers. I mean, this is the man who is doing this.
Yeah, and I mean, somebody who denies his own intelligence agencies, someone who denies his own generals advice. The people who are experts in the military who went to West Point and the Naval Academy and have been doing this for 30 years. I mean, Trump's said it publicly. I know more than the generals. The guy has no respect for service. He never could serve. He never would. His service is throwing military parades for himself. I believe he's quoted saying his college years were his own personal Vietnam. The guy's a clown. I mean, we know this. He's not a serious person. He's a deeply mentally ill person who just wants it to be about him. I mean, our men and women went and bombed Iranian nuclear facilities, which we don't know what the extent of that was. But he found a way to make it about him. A report comes out that said the bombings weren't as effective as we hoped, and he had to say no. The DOD is lying. Whoever leaked that from the DOD is lying. Now there's an active search for this person that's going to be prosecuted, just like all the people who are going to be prosecuted for fraud, waste, and abuse in Doge, and all the Democrats who are going to be prosecuted when it took over for all their crimes. It's just a nonstop circle jerk. It really is. I mean, just to throw the red meat to MAGA Twitter, and they will never, ever, ever have a critical thinking brain cell in their mind to say, wow, maybe I'm being lied to. Maybe the reason there's been no arrest and I didn't get my $5,000 Doge check, and there hasn't been lines and lines of politicians going to federal prison, is maybe this guy's lying to me. Maybe he hasn't been telling the truth for the past 16 years. So I don't know. I mean, I try not to get inside the mind of the MAGA sickness. But I mean,
well, as I very transparently, for the time that I was in it, and granted, I can't fathom myself being in it, having seen all that we've seen in the past 8 years. But when I was in it, 2016 and prior, it was the brainwashing of Fox News. I mean, it is genuinely a hypnotic cult being subjected to that. And people, when you're looking for a logic there just simply isn't a logic. That's what mesmerism does to you. It takes away your ability to critically think and analyze things logically. It is a cult, and it is engaged in hypnosis. That is the propaganda of Fox News that hijacks symbols like the cross and the American flag and the Bible, and then utterly blasphemes all of them on a daily basis. So it's a cult. It's just basically a cult. That's the simple answer for it. But what I tell people all the time is, listen, we're trying to warn you before you have to suffer personally, because there will come a time when you will feel it. You will feel it directly. And it's going to be really, really painful. And as much as you may think, or Donald Trump may try to paint us out here in the resistance as your enemies, we're actually your best friends, because we're trying to save you from the suffering that we know is eventually coming your way.
Yeah, and I mean they only support people in the military when these people abide by their political ideology. Um, I mean, it is a cult, and Fox News is partly to blame, but people can't get out of the echo chamber. Like, if you want to find a reality that suits your beliefs, you can find it. You just go on X or Truth Social. You don't have to be bothered by pesky comments, because the algorithm will filter those out because they know you don't like to see them. So I think the social media companies have a huge part in this. I think, like, if we ever get back to a normal politics, which I'm very pessimistic about, I think those days are over. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think we'll ever go back to the way it was under Obama, or even prior to Hillary Clinton's campaign against Donald Trump the first time. I think we're in a brave new world, and whoever can bark the loudest. I think Zoran's a good example of this. He's kind of the anti-Trump. He doesn't
Who's
have to
that?
do it. Zoran Manhami.
Oh,
He's
yes,
the
Manami.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So he just won the primary, and all he has to do is exist to feed oxygen into the online fire from the right, and that's what the left has been doing to Trump the whole time. All Trump had to do is exist, and since the days he took out an ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 innocent kids in Central Park for a crime they didn't commit, he has been a person who could just exist. And I'm not saying Zoran is that guy, but I'm saying he's the opposite of that. Him just being a Muslim American, him just being a 33-year-old democratic socialist, just him being existing in the political sphere is
Yeah.
making their heads explode, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Well, loving every bit of it. When we met on D-Day, there we are with our friends Harry Dunn and Sergeant Aquilino Gonell. It was
Yeah,
so great
two
to run
American
in.
heroes.
Yes, yes. I love those guys so much. Aquilino's been a friend for a long time, and Harry spoke for us along with you, Mike, back on 314. But when we met that day in the media tent, you were telling me about your new podcast, which I'm very excited about. Tell me about this. Tell our audience about it.
Yeah, so I'm hosting the Wash podcast with a good friend of mine. His name is Leonte Carew. He's possibly one of the best wide receivers that ever played Rutgers football. He also played for the Miami Dolphins, New Jersey guy like me. And I think that there's something that has been missing from the leftosphere, or from the echo chamber on the left, or whatever you want to call it, is just got white male guys and black male guys just talking about sports. Whether we're liberal or conservative, I think, like, those are the things that people want to hear about, our stories. Everything doesn't have to be about politics. Like, if I wear a Gulf of Mexico shirt, it doesn't have to be political. Let's have the discussion about why the Gulf of Mexico is called the Gulf of Mexico, the history of Mexico, what's going on in Mexico now, our favorite food places in Mexico. I think it's more of an effort to reach a younger generation of men who are online and consuming media at a rate that, frankly, we've never seen in this country. I mean, look at you, Jessica. Your podcast is tremendously successful. You do great numbers. You spread a great message, and you're making a real impact. And I think that's something that we wanted to do. And I think the demographic for both of us is something that we kind of really need to hit as a party. So that's what we're doing now. And if you guys want to check it out, if you want to talk, it's pretty sports heavy, and we do talk about some politics light. So go check it out.
I love that. It's, by the way, I've got it up on the screen on YouTube, Washed Pod. It's Washed Pod on YouTube. So go over there and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Listen, even if you're not into sports like me, like I tell everybody, Mike, I enjoy sports with a good sports movie. Give me a good sports movie. I'll love any sport.
Yeah. And I mean, we talk about, like, we talk about everything from, like, 90 Day Fiance to, it's really just two dudes, like, kicking it in the bar until the football season starts. That's basically what it is. It's not really sports heavy. It's a real fluff show. We do talk about serious issues. I do talk about veterans getting deported, and all the kind of serious stuff that you cover on this show. But we really do try to keep it light and informational and fun. So it's kind of a hybrid. It's coming together. We're doing pretty well. It's hit and miss. The YouTube algorithm is really hard to crack, but we're there. And
Well, we're gonna
hopefully
get you.
we can
We're
make
gonna
a
get you a
difference.
decent number of new subscribers today. Everybody,
Oh, great.
Washed Pod. Go subscribe right now. What I was saying is like, yeah, absolutely. Like, give me a good conversation, just something uplifting. You know, I go home at night and I turn on like a late night show or something because you need a release from this. You need a release, and you need to approach it with, you know, with humor. And I love the angle. Like I'm always thinking about this, and my audience knows like this is not my chosen profession, like podcast.
No, yeah, right, yeah.
This is not what I want to do.
Yeah,
I'm an
yeah,
artist. I would
yeah.
love more than anything to be, you know, just making art all the time. And I think we really need people in other fields to be drawing attention to these matters. We have to reach people that are not plugged into politics 24/7.
And I mean, and politics is becoming a team sport. It really is. And I mean, we can give you no better information than why you should root for the team of freedom, the team of democracy, the team of the Constitution, the
Yeah.
team of personal liberty, the team of politics that actually helps people and doesn't enrich one person. But you know, it is good to tune out sometimes, and I do really enjoy doing the show much more than I do, you know, fighting against the fascist right. So.
Nice. Yeah, I understand. Well, when you do have time to fight for the fascist right, do you have any plans to be on the streets on July 4th or July 17th, going to any protests?
Yeah, I think we have some local stuff going on in New Jersey that I'll be at. I
Nice.
don't have any plans on the 4th of July, so I'll certainly be around.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, Mike. Well, thank you so much for joining me again today. Really enjoy your pieces in Rolling Stone, and I'm going to be a new listener to the Wash Pod. So you got
Absolutely.
one non-sports fan already subscribed.
Well, we talk about Love Island on last week's show, so if you're into that, you know, you can
I'm
get
a
a bowl of
strange
popcorn and
bird.
chill.
I'm a stranger. Like I don't like reality shows either, but I do like good conversations, and I can be made to appreciate anything just by interesting people talking about it. So I'm gonna listen to you guys.
Just decompress, have a tub of ice cream, and just
Yes.
relax.
Yes, I will do that. I will do that for sure. All right, Mike. So good to see you again. Take care, my friend.
You too, Jessica. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Yeah,
You too.
take care.
All right. Well, thank you everybody so much for joining me and Michael and Alisa tonight. Really great show. I want to just remind you about those two major events coming up if you didn't get them already. One is July 17th. This is the further out one, July 17th in Washington, D.C. This is the Good Trouble Day. This is going to be a major march on Washington with a very explicit message about removal. 5051 D.C. is doing this in coalition with 14th Now and the Removal Coalition and a number of other amazing organizations that are getting on board right now. I want to read you that quote that's up on the screen from John Lewis. It says, "A democracy cannot thrive where power remains unchecked and justice is reserved for a select few. Ignoring these cries and failing to respond to take movement is simply not an option. For peace cannot exist where justice is not served." God bless John Lewis. God bless that dear man who put everything on the line to fight for justice and equality and freedom. If you want to support 5051, help them get the actual physical infrastructure we need to pull off July 17th, please go to the link on your screen, secure.actblue.com/donate/5051DC. Now, the second event, more recent, more coming up more in just a week from today, July 4th, is protests everywhere around this country. Go to your state capital, throw one yourself during the day on July 4th. I would strongly suggest you call it a rally for removal like 5051 Miami is. I will be there with 5051 Miami with Carlos Alvarez Araños, who's my good friend who we've been on kind of unintentionally on the road together with these protests. We'll be having a really great event there. Also, Sergeant Rhodes, who's a popular anti-Trump figure on social media, and Phil Ayer, retired Navy commander who's running for Congress down there in Florida in a very red district, but making a lot of gains with his PAC, the Air PAC. So if you can, join us in Miami on July 4th. It's going to be a great time. And if you're not in Miami, go to your local town and have a rally for removal like we are. Share it with me at Jessica Denson 07 on socials. I will be more than happy to promote it. Thank you, everybody, as always, for joining us. If you want to support me and this show directly, you can do it at thejessicadenson.com/donate, thejessicadenson.com/donate. Thank you all so much for the support that you give me there. It means the world, and I'm engaged in litigation to this day against the Trump campaign, so I need it and appreciate it so much. You can also buy merch at thejessicadenson.com. And by the way, did I give you the number for Congress? Call them, okay? 202-224-3121. Let them know how you feel about having Donald Trump impeached, convicted, and removed from office. All right, everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Keep it a little short tonight. As always, my friends, let your light shine.